student at Princeton Theological Seminary, word began to drift in of the verdict in the Rodney King case. And we witnessed over the next few days South Central Los Angeles erupt in violence. As a part of the school of people preparing for the ministry, we decided that it was appropriate to have a gathering at Princeton's chapel to address what was going on in our urban core in the United States. Of the 800 students at Princeton at the time, about 40 to 50 were African American. Almost every single one of them showed up for that conversation in the chapel. About 150 were Korean or Korean Americans, and their neighborhoods were part of the conflict in 1992. About 75 of the 150, 50% of Korean Americans showed up in the week we were supposed to be studying for finals because this affected them. There were over 600 Caucasian students at Princeton Theological Seminary, and I can count on my fingers how many Caucasian young people preparing for ministry showed up to have a conversation about what was going on in our nation. We failed to show up. Evangelical Christians, particularly white evangelical Christians, have failed to show up time and time and time again. Woody Allen, the great Jewish comedian, is famous for saying that 80% of success in life is showing up. And by that measure, white evangelicals have failed. I mentioned yesterday when we were gathered of a story that Jesus told. A story of a rich man who right outside of his gate was confronted with a beggar named Lazarus. But the rich man never saw Lazarus at his gate. He walked right by, oblivious to his existence. That has been the reality for too many in white America. The gulf has been too great. We have been insulated from the reality of violence in our nation. In many ways, Newtown woke us up, helped to bridge some of that gulf. Reminded of the words of the Apostle Paul in Romans 12, who says, "Mourn with those who mourn, and live in harmony with one another." Because of Newtown, many in this nation are mourning with those who mourn. And even if another Newtown never happens again, until Newtown stops happening in Oakland and Chicago and New Orleans every single week, we cannot be satisfied. Urban gun violence is a plague. It's a challenge that we have to confront. And I am committed, and I know several other evangelicals in this room today are committed, to work tirelessly to make sure that we mourn with those who mourn and stay in this struggle until our neighborhoods are the land of the living, every neighborhood in the United States. We live in a nation where capitalism rules, and often profits are justified. But often profits come at an amazing price. And historically, America has profited at the expense of the African American community. It started with slavery, continued on through Jim Crow and sharecropping. Today, gun manufacturers are profiting as never before, and the people paying that price are the people in our urban communities.
Yes, sir.
White America, evangelicals, we cannot close our eyes anymore. This time, we must do all we can with God's help to show up, to be